We're live.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. I don't know what's going on though.
Hi,
David,
everybody.
can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you guys hear us? Let us know.
I don't know if there's anybody there yet. So we're recording this today. I'm talking about med beds. And if you Google med bed scam, you're going to see a lot, right? You're going to see a real lot. And this is really tough to navigate yourself through this because people want to believe a lot. They want to believe in things that are true and things that are not true, right? I mean,
can you bring your camera down a bit?
Oh no, if I bring my camera down more, it's not going to be good. You mean bring it up?
Or up, there you go. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah. So talking about med beds today, everybody. I've seen this from the beginning, and the idea of Star Trekian technology where you can just cure anything instantly. And I've really gone into, you see, again, I've been teaching, if you watched my last webinar on pulse PEMF devices, how they work, how you have a frequency that is either good or bad quality. You have an amplifier to amplify the frequencies, and then you have an emitter, that which is emitting frequencies into the body. And med beds are in the same category as a pulse electromagnetic field device, in that they generate a field. Some med beds I've investigated are only using acoustics. They're only using sound. And, be aware of very fancy looking containers that do look like Star Trek. And you could just, some of them just remind me of what MRI machines look like. And when you go into an MRI machine, you're going to be exposed to a magnetic field that is actually huge. There's a huge magnetic field in an MRI machine. An MRI machine is diagnostic. They're looking at tissue and bone, and there's still so much in diagnostics that doctors can't see. I mean, I want to teach people how things work to know what they're actually being exposed to and what it's actually doing. So when you understand that the body is not unlike a plant in that it receives photosynthetic, there's a photosynthesis where photo meaning light, right? As in photography, your body's like a camera. You receive sunlight and you receive 9 primary colors of light, starting in the trillion waves per second bands coming from the sun. And the sunlight will penetrate the surface of the skin and go deep into the bone. It will transfer through photoelectrism. It'll charge the calcium in your bone. Calcium is the 5th best conductor, aluminum being top. Silver being the top, and gold, and then there's several different metals that are good conductors. So the fact that calcium, which is in your bones, is the 5th best conductor, means that you are electrically conductive, and because your bones are calcium and collagen, actually, and trace minerals. So we have a body that receives sunlight, and it converts that sunlight to energy, right? To actual physical and mechanical energy through the photoelectric effect. And when photons of different colors of white come into your body, they're all different frequencies. So sunlight, of course, is beneficial. We couldn't live without sunlight. But the way pulsed electromagnetic therapy devices work is they take specific frequencies that have certain, and this is where you get into a very dangerous area. See, in the way the FDA states it, you can't make a medical claim for anything unless the medical industry authorizes it. And yet the medical industry can't cure cancer. If you look at statistics on various types of cancer and chemotherapy, it's amazing that chemotherapy is authorized, because the success rate is so poor in the long term, not in the short term, but in the long term. The success rate is so poor. There's nothing that performs that poorly that you can imagine being authorized. But nevertheless, it is. And nevertheless, there are countless billions of dollars spent on cancer research. Ever since I was a kid in the 60s, there has been cancer research. And there's a monopoly of funding that goes towards cancer research, and they control it. So the idea of understanding what benefits the human body and the human health system, we're just like plants. We photosynthesize frequencies that come, a lot of them come from nature. And they convert, sunlight gets converted into mechanical energy. And our food, which was grown through sunlight, even animal flesh, people who eat meat, that animal grew through photosynthesis, and it ate plant-based diets that led to its development. And then it's the same if we eat fish, or if we're vegetarian or we're vegan. Everything we're eating is giving us energy, right? So when a system malfunctions and it's not doing well, the first thing you could theorize is somewhere in the system, the transfer of energy is not working that well. And so the idea of taking focused frequencies through pulsed electromagnetic fields that are very beneficial. For example, we first took the recording of our sun that NASA recorded, and we sent it magnetically into the body. And that's what this imprint on my chest is. This is the actual map of the frequencies of our sun in water. And we're about 80 to 87% water. So we're mostly made of hydrogen and oxygen, and we have our calcium and our collagen and our trace minerals is pretty much everything that we are, and some carbon. And so therefore, when you're looking at this medbed situation that has presented itself, one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of people are saying, well, I'm not going to do anything until these medbeds come out. Now, we've been hearing about them for a long time. And I'm going to go way back. I'm going to go way back, because I got to spend quality time with Dr. Valerie Hunt, who was a University of Southern California medical doctor. She's a real MD who had a lab at the university, and they were healing people with frequencies. So she would be one of the earliest. And Valerie Hunt spent a lot of time with me explaining to me incredible things that fall into the category of medbeds. And some of these things you wonder, coming from her, why the mainstream medical community didn't absorb them. And one of the things she told me is there are different frequencies in the rainbow spectrum that have different functions. For example, she told me that the violet and the blue part of the spectrum is very good for reducing inflammation. And inflammation is huge. It's huge. There are many brain disorders and nervous system disorders that the core of the problem is deep inflammation impinging upon the nerves and causing very, very serious medical problems. And she was able to counteract the effects of inflation using blue. But she also told me she was able to regrow a tooth and a pinky finger using certain frequencies. And this doesn't happen in a Star Trekian way where you're going to go into this machine and all of a sudden 3 days later you're going to have a finger or a tooth, right? You know, and she said we regrew a tooth, an adult tooth, which of course you only get 2 sets of teeth in your life. So the fact that this was coming from a mainstream medical doctor is difficult to understand why it doesn't get absorbed by the greater community. Well, when I worked for Bogdan Maglich on nuclear fusion, we formed a company called MedSyn, MEDSYN, and we were building nuclear particle accelerators to accelerate protons to energies where we could actually, and this is done at Loma Linda University today. There is a proton cancer treatment center where you're using harmful forms of energy radiations, meaning they're not X-rays, not gamma rays. Your nuclear energies are alpha, beta, and gamma rays. Those are your nuclear radiation rays, and sometimes X-rays. So some of those rays have been proven to be harmful and some of them beneficial to human disease. And I actually spent a lot of time with a physicist named Dr. John Goffman at Berkeley, who did all the studies for the Atomic Energy Commission and the medical community in the United States in the early days. I knew him before he died. And the John Goffman studies are available online if you want to Google those. But his job was to set safety limits for ionizing nuclear radiation on humans. And we well passed those safety limits even inside of our hospitals today, the John Goffman safety limits. But strangely, they found that X-rays were beneficial to male prostate cancer. And in fact, prostate cancer is one of the only types of cancer that seems to benefit from chemotherapy the most. I mean, you see the highest success rate on chemo with prostate cancer, but most other cancers not very successful. So when you say, how does a med bed work? Well, see, the ones that I can get my hands on, you only have ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is your nuclear family of radiation, and they're already using those on certain cancers with not very much success. And your non-ionizing radiation is our natural frequencies that are in bands that are proven to be safe. And the radio spectrum all the way down is proven to be safe. But when you're talking about your 3 phases of your PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, and med beds, there are some med beds that don't seem to be using anything other than acoustics in a chamber. And an acoustic wave is a pressure wave, and it may or may not have some benefits, but the benefits that Valerie Hunt described to me are not acoustic. They were able to reduce severe inflammation in tissue and counteract many, many illnesses. And she claimed they regrew a thumb and a tooth, which seems utterly impossible, using frequencies that she disclosed to me. So that's a U.S. University of Southern California doctor who has since passed away, and among many, many other illnesses did Dr. Valerie Hunt, experimentally treat. So you can say, I can experimentally treat a. See, it's very difficult in the medical world. See, you, the people, have to understand how this works to know if you're being scammed or not by a med bed, because you can't just believe claims that are established and written in literature on websites. You're going to go into this beautiful machine that there's only a 3D rendering of it, a special effects rendering of a med bed. We don't see a physical, real working supposed med bed. My system, my Vortex bed systems, combined with a cube, has a far more powerful and harmonic field than any med bed I've been able to investigate so far. Absolutely. Because I know what's on the inside. I don't care what the container looks like. I don't care if it looks like Star Trek. I don't care if it looks like you saw a scene like this in Star Trek. That doesn't mean anything. You have to know what's on the inside, because when you put a human being inside of a very dense energy field, we know that field, if it's a harmonic field, will transfer energy through the photoelectric effect right to your bones, especially if it's beyond acoustics. Acoustics are not going to cause your bones to absorb and emit energy very much at all. They will a little bit, but not much. A sound wave pretty much can have a nice temporary effect on a human system, because we know when we listen to music, you can say, and this is funny to me when you talk to scientists. When a scientist says there's no scientific proof that frequencies have any benefit to the human system. So let's take a control where we take 100 people of all different ages, and we're not going to expose them to any sounds or music, because sounds and music are frequencies. And let's see if they get depressed. And then we're going to have another group of 100 people, and we're going to expose them to all kinds of their different favorite music. Let's just see who's going to do better. I can guarantee you the people listening to the music are going to be doing a lot better than the people who are listening to nothing. So to say that there's no scientific proof that frequencies benefit humans is totally absurd, because all of the light. Okay, let's take another control group, and this particular control group, I'm going to put them in the dark, underground, and we're going to monitor their brain waves and their mental health. They can't have any sunlight, because those are frequencies. Because every single primary color is a frequency of electromagnetic energy, and mainstream doctors will tell you there's no scientific proof that frequencies can benefit the human organism. Okay, so let's take a control group and we'll remove the sunlight, because those are frequencies and sound. And I'll have another group who can dance, listen to their favorite music in the sunlight. Well, let's see who's going to do better. So there you go. It's incredible how arrogant they are, because they're going to try and tell you that frequencies have no benefit to the human system at all. And that's just total baloney. We're living on frequencies. So the other thing is, let's say I want to block all of the electromagnetic fields around me, because this is a total misnomer. You're going to block it. If you're going to block, you can't say, I'm only going to block the Wi-Fi and I'm only going to block the microwaves, but I'm not going to block the sun, and I'm not going to block cosmic rays, and I'm not going to block the earth frequency. See, you can't do that. When you block, if you know how to do it, as I do, you block everything, which means you're going to die. You're going to live in the dark where there's no frequencies at all. So the only logical solution is to be around harmonic fields, just like being around harmonic music. But harmonic fields are much deeper than music. So that you are getting animated by frequencies, and frequencies are bringing you to life. Because then when you get to the next level of understanding frequencies, is the higher a frequency is, the more heat it transfers to the body. So why does sunlight make us so hot? Well, because it's really high frequency energy. It's each color is in the trillion waves per second band. Red being the lowest frequency, and then violet and ultraviolet being the highest frequencies in the color spectrum. But each particular color band has a specific set of benefits and functions. And what Dr. Valerie Hunt told me in our very long discussions that went on for days before she died, at the very end of her life work, is there are certain color band frequencies that have certain benefits to the body. So again, let's go back to med beds. Don't just believe what you're reading. Find out how they work. Find out, are they emitting nuclear ionizing radiation, alpha, beta, X-ray, and gamma rays? Are they using any of those? And if they're not using any of those, then find out, are they using magnetic wave frequencies? And if they're not using any of those, are they using acoustic wave, which is a pressure wave frequency? And then
can it also be like light? Can they be just emitting light, or would that do nothing? Because there are certain med beds out there that just emit light, supposedly.
Well, our sun emits light, but to
Right.
what I said is if it's a med bed and it's that expensive and it's just emitting, okay, first of all electromagnetic energy is light. So that means a radio wave frequency is light, and it travels at the speed of light. But when you get to visible light, then you can go, when you're going into, okay, let's go to gamma rays, which is the most powerful energy.
So I guess that's why you called your company Lightstream back in the day then, because light essentially is frequency.
And it's a stream. You go from your lowest frequencies, which are coming off your planets and your star surfaces, and you're going all the way into the lowest part of the brain, which is the theta part of the brain, can pick up the delta part of the brain can pick up below 1 hertz all the way to 4 hertz, and the theta part of the brain 5 to almost 8 hertz, and then the alpha part of the brain goes from there, and then the beta and the gamma part of the brain. The brain waves are very, very low frequencies. But what happens in a system that's not working well, a biological system is not working well, it's detuned, or it's getting too much of one thing and not enough of another, right? So what Valerie Hunt studies, which really expound upon Darius Dinsaw's work, which was Let There Be Light, using visible light color filters to treat illness. And he did this with a nurse very effectively in real hospitals way back when medical hospitals were much more open to alternatives. But as the medical industry gained a monopoly on treating subjects and started to make, I mean, look what's happened during this pandemic. It's practically almost illegal to be an alternative practitioner. So I can't say davidsereda.co legally that any of my devices are for treating illness. You have to know how this system works to know what is the best thing for you if you want to experiment with pulsed electromagnetic fields, because this is a pulsed electromagnetic field. This whole system would malfunction if I remove pulsed electromagnetic fields. Remember, if I remove sunlight, I removed all those frequencies. If I remove music, I removed all those frequencies. And if I block all EMF, all of it, you're a plant. You're going to die, because we wake up when the sun wakes up. We are like plants. We go to sleep when the sun goes down. We are like plants. We live on the transfer of light to life. Light to life. So think about that as equation. Light equals life. And what is light? Light is both the invisible electromagnetic frequencies coming all the way into the first primary color, red, orange, yellow, lemon, green, indigo, blue, violet. Those are your primary 9 colors. And then some of those colors cross to form purple and scarlet and many beautiful nuances. So when colors cross to form these beautiful nuanced colors, some of those crosses are really incredible at affecting the healing of the body. And when we live in a building that is blocking all the sunlight, is blocking all the cosmic rays, and the more time because of our jobs that we're not exposed, because see, we can say studies done in the Scandinavian countries in the wintertime where they don't get enough ultraviolet light, so therefore their body won't produce enough vitamin D. So here's a perfect study to tell a doctor who says that there's no scientific proof that frequencies benefit human beings. Well, we already know that ultraviolet light is a frequency, and it affects the synthesis of vitamin D in this system. So you can tell them that. All the evidence in the world.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, let's say somebody is working with the frequency, and I'm just going to arbitrarily choose purple. And how then does that frequency travel from the amplifier to the coil to the person? Like, what's the...
Okay, so every color starts at a frequency that is so high that we don't currently make emitters, antennas, or transmitters that vibrate that high. However, each color has, just like our music scale, octaves, which are perfect harmonic steps of that frequency. So if I take the frequency of the color green in the trillion hertz bands, I actually have all of those numbers because I created the all of the frequencies of the rainbow for people's personal use through my coils, my beds in the cube. My beds in the cube with the rainbow frequencies is one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced. And people don't always get my systems because they're trying to fix a problem. There's many people who get my systems to preventatively stay tuned. So one, your whole house vibrates at a higher frequency, and two, you are staying tuned at a good frequency. You see, it's not always about when people say the highest frequency, right? Well, what does that mean? Like the highest frequencies we know of are gamma rays, and a gamma ray burst would destroy this whole planet. A huge gamma ray burst would, but tiny little gamma ray bursts wouldn't, right? Because when we set off an atomic bomb, there's a significant amount of gamma radiation for just a flash.
Oh, wait, answer the question for me, David. What happens when the...
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Each color comes down in musical octaves, and we get to the point that we reach all of the bands where the octaves pass through all of the ranges of human hearing, from 20,000 hertz, which most humans can't hear because the city's too noisy around you. And then you come down to 1,000 hertz. I guarantee you most people can hear 1,000 hertz. And then you come all the way down to even the frequencies that where the bottom of the brain operates, which is the delta part of the brain. So if I start from, if I take, for example, green, and I come all the way down in my octaves, guess a musical octave is, I take the frequency divided by 2, divided by 2, divided by 2, divided by 2, and I come all the way down. The frequency of Earth, 7.83 fundamental, is green. That's a green octave. So the Earth is an octave of green, and that your trees are all green, the grass is green. isn't that interesting? And green is heart chakra. And it turns out our sun puts out more green light than any other color. And another interesting study we did is when we took the sound of the sun and we pulsed subjects with the sound of the sun. This study was done in Russia by Sereda Medvedeva under my direction. And the human heart field got huge using the sound of the sun. So our heart, which is green, and our earth is an octave of green cooperatively, is the core power plant of the body. How do you like that? So when you go to your med bed and you say, oh, I want to get a med bed because I heard it does this, that's that, and that, and it's mostly a bunch of baloney, which is called marketing. And they're trying to get you excited and tell you you're going to go in this machine and suddenly you're going to be 20 years younger. See, I'm 60 and I'd like to regrow this tooth right here that I knocked out, changing a tire. So I haven't done what Valerie Hunt has told me to do in regards to that. But before I would tell you that if you use one of my systems, it'll regrow a tooth, I can't tell you that because I haven't done it myself. But I can tell you things that people who have used my system, the results they've gotten. And I can tell you the results I've gotten on my own body, but I can't even scientifically prove that what happened is the direct result of what I did. That's how science works. It's that brutal. So that's why anybody stepping into the world of med beds, before you spend all that money, ask them how it works. Is it emitting nuclear level radiation, alpha, beta, gamma, or x-rays or gamma, right? Is it emitting radio frequencies? Is it emitting very, very low acoustic frequencies? Because if it's not emitting any of those, and it's not, and they say, well, we do use light. Well, you are using one of those. If you're using a light bulb, like I have right here, does that have any effect on me? Yes, because I'm a photoelectric being. Photoelectrism is the transfer of light into mechanical electrical energy. Photoelectric, right? So, and photosynthesis, and now it's believed that plants are growing through photosynthesis, but we now know our sun puts out these deep pressure waves, pulses that are really low frequencies. And so we can see water responds to those frequencies really nicely that are coming from our sun. So there may be a whole other part or component to photosynthesis and plant life than just the visible and the invisible part of the light spectrum coming from our sun, right? So there's a lot we don't know about. And why do plants do, like we've had people use my coils and grow plants, and now we have these legal marijuana growers now, and we've had people say they got more buds and better plants than they've ever had. Now, if you got more buds and better plants than you ever had using my coils, why didn't the sun do that? Why didn't the plant growth lights do that? You know why? I can tell you why. Because there's another element to our sun we don't know yet, and that's the deep pulses that are not part of the known electromagnetic spectrum. So we make our lights to grow plants, and I've done this. I've taken alfalfa sprouts, grow them in the dark, so they're white. There's no color, and I'll put them on top of my coil in a dark room, and they'll turn green. But I can put them in the sunlight, right? So that means there's another element coming from the sun that's keeping us all alive that we don't know about. So again, going back to understanding medbed technology is you better find out how they work. and what's going on, because I can tell you how my systems work. I can tell you the cube is a double vortex. So it's spinning counterclockwise and opposite ends, which means in the center, when the wave connects, it's like taking a rag and you wring it out. The rag gets tighter, tighter, and tighter and tighter. It's just that I'm basically dialing down a counter rotational wave, which doesn't have mass, because electromagnetism doesn't have mass, right? But yet it can convert itself to mass in energy. That's what photoelectricism is. So if I have a steel plate here and the light is hitting here, when the light hits here, it can cause the electrons, which have a tiny bit of mass, to become excited. And when they become excited, they jump shells, because electrons orbit the nucleus of an atom, the proton and the neutron, the way planets orbit our sun. And if you give them some energy, they will accelerate and they will jump orbital shells, well, depending on the state of their energy. So, and I understand how that works. So your body works the same way. But if I can also give you, just like I can give you music that is an absolute mess to your biology is not going to like this music. I can give you frequencies that actually may mess you up. They may detune you, right? So that means we should understand what are the frequencies in the med beds, and what are they going to do to me. Not just because it has this Star Trekian looking container. Oh my God, I want to buy it because I want to go in that thing. You can go into something that looks just like that if you go to your dentist, or if you want to go get an MRI or a CAT scan. So don't be impressed by containers. Be impressed by what's on the inside. What is the relevance of astrology and our frequency field? So the astrology field, again, the cosmic rays and the positions of planets and stars, the moment a child crowns and enters the world, the crown chakra, which if you see my film, it's called The Voice Part 1 and 2. It's on Gaia TV. You can see the segment with this, I'm trying to remember his name, scientist who did the Global Consciousness Project, Roger Nelson. And you can see this photograph they took in a pitch black room with this super expensive Mitsubishi camera that can see into low light. The shape of the crown chakra was a vortex spiral, right? So it's literally like one of my coils. My coils are shaped and they move energy. They spin energy at 3/4 the speed of light inside the coil, but they have a dimension of spin in the double alternate. In the cube spins energy faster than light. Definitely spins energy faster than light. So imagine an energy field spinning that fast, and that is the shape of your chakras. Your chakras are like vortex wheels. And if your chakras are out of tune and you place them in the presence of this spinning light system, it's kind of like, have you ever been in a room that has no airflow? The way my systems work is they're basically going to move and circulate the energy in the room because the energy is stagnant. And when your body gets stagnant, it's the same thing. And whenever I find that regular tuning of the nervous system of the body is exactly what human beings need in the modern age, because we live in a technological age. We work in buildings that may have airflow, but they don't have energy flow, in and out energy points. And there's ways we could have designed architecture to have an energy in and an energy out, right? Like a lake, you can't let water sit and go stagnant or it rots. It has to keep moving, right? It has to have an in and it has to have an out. And rivers all end at the sea and they start with the glacier and the snow melt, right? So everything has to be moving, everything has to be flowing. And the way our chakras move is they spin. We can see this in this incredible photograph that was taken of the crown chakra. It's a vortex funnel wheel. So and so therefore to lie on a vortex flower wheel spinning at 3/4 of the speed of light, that's the physical part of the spin. The energetic part of the spin goes much faster than that. Is to move all of that stagnant energy, and to be able to do that, for 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, is it just, see, when you know how things work, you know why things work. And then it's like, do I know when I buy a pair of speakers and I plug them in and everything's working, I play the music, I'm going to feel a certain way listening to my favorite music. I've got so many people that says that they can identify their favorite frequencies coming out of my coil, but they can't hear it. That's how sensitive we are, right? So there is, just like if you pray to your food, your salad, before you eat it. I've been eating a lot of salad lately because my garden has tons of salads. I eat like 1 to 2 salads a day right now. And I still pray. I still say a little. I don't always say my prayers. Sometimes I just connect to my heart center before I eat a meal. Sometimes I just have a moment of silence with it. I don't always use words when I pray, but sometimes I do. But understanding that every single living system is responsive, and it's response able to frequencies that are in a proper harmony, is understanding how things work, because you feel it, right? Again, a lot of people buy my systems for the same reason people buy a stereo system, because they want to have these beneficial frequencies in their house because they can feel it. I did a test this week, and it really shocked me because I don't like to believe. I like to believe. I mean, why did Jesus say in Mark 6:1-8 that the apostles had to have their staff? It was mandatory. He said, no money in your purse, no bread, no food, but you have to have your staff. So I decided to turn, my staff is on all the time over by the bed. I turned it off for 3 days. And I noticed when I meditated, it took 2 days. The frequency of the bliss, the supreme ecstasy that I feel when I meditate every day went down. And I went, oh my God, that doesn't seem right. So then I turned it back on, reset the frequency, and it went up. Now, why is it that our cultures used to all have a temple that was mathematically measured perfectly? It wasn't just any old temple. And why, when you look in ancient Egypt and you look through every prophet in the Bible from all the way up to Jesus Christ, they all had their staff. And then today we say, we don't need anything. Well, when you take away something that is a beneficial function in your civilization, and then all you have, I look at people and I go, but there's a microwave tower bombarding you with horrible frequencies. So you're okay with that, but you think, no, I don't need a harmonic field transmitter in my house. But I'm perfectly okay with that microwave tower right there. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I hear this all the time. Oh, I'm fine. I don't need anything. I just need to eat good food, exercise, and get bombarded by microwaves all day. I don't need. So that's like, when I hear that, it's like saying, I don't need to tune my violin or my guitar. I'll just let it go completely out of tune and just get completely whacked out and listen to totally detuned music, because this is what Pythagoras called the musica humana. This is a musical instrument. You want to become a detuned instrument and just get bombarded by all the microwaves? Oh, I don't need to have frequencies in my house. I'm fine with all the microwave towers, because you are guaranteed, if I go into your house with my microwave meter, guaranteed you're getting bombarded by microwaves. Guaranteed. So you think that's okay, and you don't need a harmonized field tuner for your house. That makes no sense to me, because I understand how things work and why certain things work and why others don't. I've been meditating every day for 45 years. I know which meditations work and which don't. I know that there is a purpose to having a temple frequency in your house, turning your house into a temple, right? It is gives you an advantage when you meditate and pray to go to a higher level, right? Why did the ancient Jews and the ancient Egyptians have a Holy of Holies temple? Why did the early Christians have a Holy of Holies temple? Why did we get rid of it? There are no Holy of Holies temples in Christian churches today. Why did they get rid of the staff when Jesus said in Mark 6:1-8 that you had to have it? Oh, we don't need it. So again, when you get rid of things that can benefit you, then you're wondering why it's harder to get high, to get into a nice high vibrational state. Well, learn. So how big of an area is affected by the cube? Well, the cube, it will affect a whole building. I can measure the cube 35 feet across with a meter, but it goes out at the speed of light, and it's like two toroidal donut fields stacked on top of each other, spinning counter rotational to each other. So all of the energy in the surrounding area around it is actually being attracted into it and goes through the field and gets recalibrated, and then it sends it back out. And because we're playing a harmony through it, like in the video on my website, I'm playing the binaural resurrection biblical frequencies through it, and they're very beautiful to listen to them.
Did you respond to the person who's talking about the wooden staff?
No, I don't see the wooden staff. Where is it?
Well, they're saying that the staff used to be made of wood.
No, the staff is not made out of wood. If you look in all of your if you look in your Bible, God told Moses to put a fiery brass serpent, which is copper, on a pole. And of course, the serpent is the language of symbols. You wouldn't put a real snake that's smoking from the fire, the fire pit on a pole. That's just the language of symbols. So copper is a metal. And if we go into the most ancient history on the staff, it's in the forgotten books of Eden, when Adam and Eve were expelled from the garden. The first prophet, who was really Adam and Eve, are given a staff, and the staff is metal and sapphires, and aluminum is sapphire. A sapphire is an aluminum ozone crystal. So as time went on, if you look in your Egyptian pictographs of the staffs, they're perfectly straight metal rods. It even says in the Bible, in Revelation, if you know your Bible, that Jesus will rule the world with an iron rod, iron staff. And of course, which is metal. So there's no evidence that the staff of Moses was made of wood, because that's not what God said. God said to put brass, a coil. And you know what happened when Nikola Tesla made the first coil around a pole? We created the first electrical induction radio. So frequencies, radio frequencies, are born as soon as you serpent coil metal, right? That's the language of symbols. There's nowhere in the Bible or in the old books I've traced the staff through so many different legends. Now, a wooden staff, wood is carbon, and it has trace minerals in it and trace metals, tiny, tiny amounts. So it's mildly conductive. Your spine, which is calcium, is the 5th most conductive metal we know. So if you're holding a piece of wood, it would have the mildest effect as a staff. But I can't know. I would like it to be a piece of wood, but that's not what the scriptures tell us. And if you look at the ancient Persian kings, like Darius's staff, you will see it has the coil all the way down the shaft, and they're perfectly straight. That's not wood. I mean, you would have to have a lathe. I mean, we make perfectly straight wooden rods with a lathe. They didn't have lathes in those days, as far as I know, to make a perfectly straight piece of wood and then coil it. I mean, you could take and I wanted to do this, by the way. I wanted to make wooden staffs with a copper coil coming down them, just because they're very, very beautiful. But I can see the evidence in the Bible that the throne of God was made of sapphire, and that would be aluminum, because you couldn't make a whole throne out of sapphire crystal, which is aluminum ozone crystal, O3. So it would have to be aluminum. And aluminum has incredible properties. And the speed of sound will vibrate through aluminum over 11,000 miles an hour. But again, remember, your Bible says Jesus will rule with a rod of iron. That's not a wooden staff. That is a metal staff. Now, we don't know, again, in the translations, if it's really iron or some other metal. We don't really know, because these Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and the book of Revelation were written in Greek, and ancient Greek at that. So I would really like to see where it says that he'll rule with an iron rod. I mean, I have staffs here at different lengths that I've experimented on. We know how long the staff was because it lay in the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark of the Covenant is 2.5 cubits, and you have to find the right cubit, because the book of Ezekiel says the cubit of God is a cubit plus a hand, which is the royal cubit, and then you got to find the right royal cubit, as I did, to find out that's true. So you can believe the staff is wood because you saw Charlton Heston in the 10 Commandments with his crooked wooden staff, and you saw Merlin with his wooden staff. But that doesn't mean a wooden staff. It would be mildly conductive. Mild, right? So what is wood? Well, when you burn it, you've got carbon. So it's carbon. So again, you can enjoy a wooden staff. There also, the Buddhists had staffs. Yogananda had a staff. Many of his masters had staffs. They had to be measured a very precise length, very precise. And there's an example in the book of Ezekiel. The illuminated being, the angel, is coming down, and he's holding a 6-cubit staff. And then when we go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Temple Scroll, there's an angel holding a 7-cubit staff. And each height represents, as an antenna, as a monopole, a different frequency. So the people who get my staffs, they work with those frequencies based on the 6-cubit staff, the 7-cubit staff of Ezekiel. I've worked with the Ezekiel frequencies through my staff, and I had incredible dreams, incredible illuminated lights appearing in my consciousness. So they're all, there isn't one frequency that you work with all the time with your staff. So could you put several cubes in a room to create a larger therapeutic room? You could. I mean, it would be, if you what I would do in a case like that, Lisa, is I would take a Holy of Holies radius with one one measurement in the center of a circle and draw a circle and set up a cube on your true north or your magnetic north. You could try both, and then your south and your east and west. So you could put 4 cubes in the 4 cardinal directions at a very sacred radius in a circle in the healing room. Another thing I did in my yard out here is I took my staff in the middle of the circle with a string using the radius. There's 2 Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies at the time of Moses, when the Holy of Holies was a cubic tent, 10 by 10 by 10, it would be royal cubits. If you read Ezekiel, God never uses a common cubit, so it's the long cubit. And if you use the Hebrew long cubit, a Holy of Holies is exactly 17 feet, by the way, the original. Now, if I go to the Queen's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, it's 10 by 10 cubits. It's the same measurement as the original Holy of Holies. And inside of the Holy of Holies, when it was the tabernacle, it was the tent, had another rectangular tent that extended behind and connecting it, which is 10 by 20 cubits, right? That's the King's Chamber. The King's Chamber is 10 by 20 cubits. If you use the right inch to cubit, that's what it is. So why are they the same? Why does the Great Pyramid have the same measurements that the God of Moses gave for the holy place, the King's Chamber, and the Holy of Holies is the Queen's Chamber? And guess what's in the Holy of Holies? It's the Ark of the Covenant. And guess what's inside of the Ark of the Covenant? The staff. Okay, so, and the staff lay in the ark. This is in the New Testament. I'm trying to remember which book it's in. It's Hebrews. It's in Hebrews. So, if you know the true cubit, which it took me years to do the math and perfectly resolve the measurements with the exact royal cubit to inches, then you know what it is. So then the why do the yogis of India have staffs, and why do the Buddhists have staffs, and why does the staff eventually turn into the sword? And this is in the book of the lost book, the Forgotten Books of Eden, when all of a sudden Satan shows up with his staff, and God tells Adam to smite Satan's staff with yours, and that's when the staff becomes the sword or the lightsaber. So that the dark forces would have theirs too, but then theirs wouldn't calibrate at the level of, and this, it gets really, really incredible. Why this tool is so powerful. Why is frequency, like, forget staff, why is frequency so powerful? So when I made my first coil, my first 14-pointed star coil, why did I do 14 points? I did the 14 points, but now let's go to the church. Charles, what's it called? The church where Jesus was born, where they placed the church of the Nativity. If you go to the Church of the Nativity, you're going to see this 14-pointed star right on the spot where Jesus is born. 14-pointed star. So I came out with the 14-pointed star coil, and then I slowly evolved it to a 7 level, because the 14 is base 7, right? And 7 points divided by 360 degrees is the closest you get to in a finite number series to the slope angle of the Great Pyramid of Egypt as well. So because if you take 360 degrees divided by 7, you get 51.42. So that's incredibly close to Great Pyramid angle. So you'll see that there's a mystery. I've never been able to solve the mystery. Where does the God of the prophets emerge in the ancient Egyptian story, and was the God of the prophets leading up to the 3 most powerful religions in the world, Where was that God inside of the Egyptian civilization? Because it had to be in there if the pyramid has the same exact measurements. In fact, the height of the pyramid is the same measurement. If you go in what's called the temple scroll, the Holy of Holies courtyard is 280 cubits squared. Well, that's the Great Pyramid of Egypt is 280 cubits tall. So why is the God of the Hebrews and the prophets using the same measurement as the pyramid? The pyramid was there before, way before the Egyptian people came into the civilization. They found it. It wasn't theirs. And they emulated their civilization around this ancient artifact that probably survived the last ice age. But if you know God and the prophets as a measurer, because everything gets measured, the temple in Ezekiel, everything, the Noah's Ark, the staff, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy of Holies, everything is measured to perfection. Then if you know God's measurements, you'll see the pyramid is God's. It's not an Egyptian monument. So the math proves it. So therefore, the fact that plants respond to frequencies, the fact that we can see people growing more successfully with my coils than the sun will even do, means that there's something coming from our sun that we're missing. It's not just photosynthesis. It's pulsed frequencies, which means our body can therefore benefit from having these pulse frequencies. So that's the whole thesis. So the cube is the most advanced system to date that I've developed. It is the most advanced system. I'm always coming up with even more advanced systems. And there right now, it is the most, I have to, when I come up with something even more advanced, I have to test it first and make sure it isn't blowing up people's amplifiers to make sure that it's all working perfectly. So is there any more questions, Shiroz? I think we lost Shiroz. Does anybody have any more questions? I'll look here. There's a question here. I can't really understand. I went to Teotihuacan sun and moon pyramids. I guess that would be in Mexico. 5 days in Mexico on the first day of the Murray New Year. Yeah, those pyramids also have. I've looked at the math, and it's the math and the measurement is the unifier. If you want to find the source of what is the connection to all of the world pyramids to each other, you look at the measurements and you look at the architecture and you find out what it is. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here today. You can watch the replay of this or share it with your friends. Please go to my website, davidsereda.co. Down below me to the left here, you can see my website and you can check out the cube. Note, my systems are handmade. They will last forever if you take care of them. Your amplifier won't last forever, but it can get repaired. There's several amplifiers I recommend to go with my systems. And your frequencies will basically be here as long as civilization is here. The beauty of having your frequencies and your amplifier and your transmitter separate is it's much easier to repair than if something ever goes wrong with it. So anyway, have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you here next time.